Where's mine? No, not that. I don't know what I'm doing next. Reading. See, I need the order of service too. Our reading today is by author unknown, but I thought it was appropriate. Mother, thank you for Easter eggs and Christmas trees, bandages on skinned up knees, for nursing colds and making beds, pillows under sleepy heads, for loving stray dogs, kittens, and birds, laughing at jokes you've already heard, for birthday cakes and tooth fairy dimes, planning and sharing special times, for playing taxi and bagging lunches, accepting mud pies and hugs and bunches, for understanding puppy love pain, high red boots for walking in rain, for all these things and so much more, the things I never said, thank you for. I love you. I often like to ask input from friends or families or congregants for sermons, and this one was really special. I enjoyed developing it, if you will. Celebrating mothers. An annual celebration of the work and worth of mothers has become both a religious observance and a most profitable commercial occasion, particularly here in America, where this day originated. As Mother's Day approaches, the stores are filled with eager shoppers, striving to find something unique or even custom gifts, cards and flowers, to bring a quick smile of appreciation to lips and to light up eyes. Some mothers will receive Hallmark cards, champagne brunches, expensive jewelry, and a memorable day full of love and laughter. Some mothers awaken to the fragrant aroma of coffee, burnt toast, overcooked eggs, and handmade cards drawn with love. However, motherhood is both difficult and rewarding. It is a great honor and privilege, yet it is also synonymous with servanthood. Every day, women are called upon to selflessly meet the needs of their families. Whether they are awake at night nursing a baby, spending their time and money on less than grateful teenagers, or preparing meals, moms continuously put others before themselves. The idea of a day set aside for the celebration of mothers evokes emotions as complex as the thought of mothers themselves. Sometimes the relationships between mothers and children are often complex, beautiful, dark, and sometimes emotionally painful. Throughout the years, I have met mothers who were estranged from their adult children for 2 or more decades, and they were just as perplexed by the reasons for the break as anyone else. I am an only child, and so was my mother. Therefore, not only did I have the advantage of the lineage continuity of being mothered by the same women who had mothered her, I also had her as well. There was my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my aunts, grandmother's 2 childless sisters. The aunties were great bakers, and I have yet to buy a caramel cake or a sweet potato pie to rival one of theirs. My great-grandmother was a devoted Christian who truly believed in loving her neighbor as herself. She reached outside of our little community to anyone who needed a helping hand. It was she who nurtured my belief in a divinity, taught me how to pray, and instilled important lessons about having compassion for others. Lee Sharkey, Director of Women's Studies at the University of Maine at Farmington, informs that no relationship is as primal as the one between a mother and her daughter. It's the original love relationship, regardless of if and when it later turns towards others. She continues saying, it's also a relationship that has been sentimentalized, but not honored. However, if daughters don't acknowledge it, they're being closed off from a great source of power, fulfillment, and understanding of themselves. Good or bad, I believe our maternal nurturing, or lack thereof, plays a major role in the people we grow up to be. When thinking about my own mother, I remember how pretty I thought she was, and that she always kept her word. You know how some children use the pinky swear to seal a promise? Well, with me, it was asking the question, for real? And when my mother responded in the affirmative with the same words, I knew there was no chance of being disappointed. One day in 1955 is seared in my memory. That was the year the movie Lady and the Tramp was released. The 12-year-old me was so happy walking hand in hand with my mother going to that movie. She was an excellent seamstress and made a lot of her own clothes, and that particular day she was wearing a burnt orange dress with a white Peter Pan collar. And she wore brown and white spectator pumps. I've searched for a pair like that for years, but never found them. The importance of honesty and keeping true to one's word was imprinted on me by her, and of course, her sense of style and love of fashion. Moreover, that same imprinting of honesty was imprinted on her by the women who nurtured her as well. The late Maya Angelou's poem, Phenomenal Woman, crosses all classes and cultures in her description of women, because in their unique way, all women are phenomenal. Perfect or flawed, those who give birth or those who assume responsibility to mother did the best they could with what they had to offer. Sometimes what makes an impression on a child is something as simple as observing a mother who loves to garden, or may not have a green thumb but loves arranging flowers and always has a lovely bouquet in the house. Jan Estes talks about being a sucker for musicals. And wouldn't you know it? That love for musicals stems from the memory of watching her mother sing and dance all through the house. She shares that her mom grew up during the big band era, and she had a great love of music. She continues saying that even as a widow, without any extra cash, somehow her mother always managed to take the kids to a Casa Mañana musical in Fort Worth every year. A phenomenal woman. It was no surprise that memories of mothers are in the role of nurturer around food and sharing meals. Judith Ferrari shared that her mother's love was so often expressed through her cooking. Many of her fondest memories, she says, are of the moments they spent together in the kitchen. After all these years, she can still picture herself as a small child sitting on the counter, helping her mother by tossing a fresh salad. She continues remembering how her mother would laugh when the ingredients flew out of the wooden bowl. And she tells us that she was more of an interruption than a true helper, but her mother was always patient and found ways to include her. Moreover, it was in those moments, she says, of their kitchen alchemy, co-creating, that Judith truly felt her mother's love, with their laughter mingling with the wonderful aromas of her cooking. My son Michael's memories was also about food. He recalled our sharing burgers after his visits to the doctor. Michael was a child that had all kinds of allergies and asthma, so he had a lot of visits to the doctor. Therefore, it was important to try and balance the doctor's appointments that were imposed on such a young child. I was a stay-at-home mother who didn't go out to work until the last of my 5 children, my daughter, was school age. So it's no surprise my oldest son, James, says he remembers the comforting feeling of coming home from school to find me busy being a homemaker and smelling dinner cooking, while soap operas could be heard on the television in the living room. He also remembers spending time in the kitchen and inquisitively asking how the dishes were prepared. I admit that he is as good a cook as his sister who went to culinary school, and I was surprised to learn that he attributes his cooking skills to everything he learned from me. Now, you might think that my daughter's love for cooking stemmed from the same source. However, all of her domestic skills were acquired as an adult without any influence from me. She tells me that her fond memory of me is the way I dressed and the fashionable clothes that I wore. And in her mind, she could only think of wanting to be a fabulous woman like her mother when she grew up. You see, I didn't encourage my daughter towards domesticity. I was a 1960s homemaker, limited in scope by patriarchal rules. Therefore, I intentionally avoided assigning traditional gender-specific chores that included my boys learning to cook, clean, and sew. Because my daughter's birth certificate stated female, not maid or cook. Again, in reference to Lee Starkey's study, she informs that mothers are expected to take a daughter under her wing and teach her how to be a woman. But in order to do this, you have to ask yourself, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to balance care for others with your own personal quest for meaning and joy in life? Moreover, how does a woman pass these lessons on to her daughter? For me, that meant teaching my daughter what it means to navigate both unspoken rules of patriarchy and racism as a Black woman in America. What it means to be womanist, the term coined by author Alice Walker, saying the word womanist is to feminist like lavender is to purple. She goes on to describe a Black feminist as one committed to the wholeness, survival, and well-being of the entire community, both male and female. Moreover, womanism centers the experiences of Black women, advocating for intersectional equality across race, class, and gender. However, while the hope of any mother for her children is that they are healthy, happy, and can find their own path, no matter the gender, parenting isn't easy because personalities are individual as well as the specific needs of children. From my perspective, the most important role in mothering is to protect children so that they feel safe and loved. My youngest son, Terrence, said that to ask him for a favorite memory when he had no bad moments or memories, it's like asking a person that's always full to describe being hungry, or a person with an abundance of money to describe being broke. But he said the one word that constantly came to mind is protector. He continues saying he feels like I've always protected and covered him. He shared remembering the time he was afraid to tell me that he checked himself into alcohol rehab. And without missing a beat, my response was, I'm proud of you. God answers prayers. Again, in another memory where he was reluctant to share the news of divorcing to remarry a woman that I was unfamiliar with, the news was met with my support, and also telling him to follow his heart and not to allow guilt and worry over what his ex-wife's parents would think that would deter his happiness. He continues saying that my showing strength and courage made him feel strong. There's a parenting guide titled Strong Mothers, Strong Sons, written by Dr. Meg Meeker. This guide offers practical advice for mothers on raising confident, emotionally healthy, and principled sons. It emphasizes the crucial role mothers have in shaping their sons' character, teaching them to respect women, and helping them navigate challenges like emotional expression and the pressure of modern life. The book provides a roadmap for mothers on how to build strong relationships with their sons and how to avoid common pitfalls and instill values like hard work, integrity, empathy, and ultimately guiding them to become extraordinary men. Now, this book may be very helpful. However, motherhood is not a solo journey, and the ability to develop courage and strength relies heavily on support that one receives from the children's father, family, and friends. It truly does take a village to raise children into healthy, productive adults. My husband and I were teenage parents, and as a teenage mother, the support from both our families was crucial to parenting. Because besides the basic housekeeping skills, I was mothering solely by instinct and from a place of love from the time they were born through teenage and young adult years. My son John shared a particular memory that occurred when he was 5 years old. This is the first day of kindergarten. We lived in suburban Akron, Ohio, approximately 2.5 blocks from the elementary school. So, Junior, as he was called, was to walk by himself to school. He still vividly remembers the directions. Walk to the end of the block, turn right, down another block to a white picket fence, then turn left, and you will see the children and the school. But as fate would have it, in his young mind, when he was supposed to make a left, he made a right and didn't see any children or school. He recalls being scared, but he was able to retrace his steps and come back home to the comfort of his mommy. I was able to comfort him, and we walked the 2 blocks to school together. After that day, he remembered the white picket fence as a landmark and never got lost going to school again. The lesson here for me is how one incident can remain somewhere in the recesses of our minds that become instrumental in the way we govern ourselves throughout life. John is now 64 with grandchildren, and according to him, over the years, with many wrong turns, that my comforting him and the first day of kindergarten and the white picket fence has become a metaphor for many such situations that have occurred in his life. All mothers have a different story, and we all have a different memory of her. I do consider myself one of the lucky ones that my adult children are still able to rely on my love and support. May we hold in our hearts the mothers we have known, those who loved us and those who tried. May we forgive the mothers who didn't get it right and release the knot of disappointment, pain, and anger. May we hold in our hearts the truth that mothering and nurturing is a task that belongs to us all. From my heart to yours, may it be